Welcome, Jess.
Thanks for having me. That was a mad intro, by the way. I was sitting back there, I was like, I'm not nervous. Then you're like, world's biggest brands. And I was like, oh, shit. I feel like I got to go talk about that now.
You're a bit of a big deal, JESWRI.
People know me. I'm kind of a big deal.
So, Jess, it feels in many ways like this theme of Rise was kind of made for you, and I can see how that's played out in many different facets of your story and your work. And I think possibly as a jumping off point, to just hear a little bit of that journey from 20 years ago as a graffiti artist to now being the co-founder of a gallery doing NFTs and stuff that I don't understand and all of this amazing stuff. What was that journey like, and what did you have to kind of rise up against on the way?
Yeah, where do I start with that one? The journey's been tough. I think I've made myself quite proud about how tough it's been, because I've made an effort to try and acquire mentors over my career. I haven't really had much luck. I've tried my hardest to maintain a full-time job. That doesn't happen either. So I was counting the other day. I've been fired from about 18 jobs in my life, and I got my first real job at 19. And I'm only 33. So do the math. I've been working for myself for like 10, 12 years now, and I haven't fired myself since. So I'm like the unemployable, I think. And
Jess, I know that one thing you've spoken a lot about is your own sort of resilience, and you've obviously got this incredible drive and initiative to be able to go out there and make shit happen. What happens when you encounter gatekeepers, bullies, people who don't want you to succeed or don't see the same thing that you see? What's your experience of kind of rising up against people who are trying to keep you from succeeding?
Yeah, where do I start, I feel like I'm reminded of the time when I was in kindergarten and I got into my first fight. And one of my friends came up to me and was asking me, like, hey, this person's taller than me. They're pushing me over, they're stealing my shit. Being a 5-year-old, I'm like, oh, okay, well, my mum told me to never take shit from anybody, so I'm gonna go help you out. I got punched in the face so hard, but I kept on going. I was like, the best thing I can do is kick him in the shins. I was way small, and I was like... And I feel like I just carried that same mentality throughout my life. I hate bullies really badly. I was bullied my whole life. I was bullied from my dad, I was bullied from my friends, I was bullied from the people in my school. I was a mad nerd in school. I was captain of the chess team, and I brought all my comics to school, so I was definitely an easy target. But I feel like I carry the same mentality, like, just don't take shit from anybody. My mum always told me, if you got punched in the face, then punch him back. I've got a tattoo on my body that says, do no harm, take no shit. It's a good Pinterest board model, but it just reminds me to just not take shit from anybody. So I've definitely experienced my fair share of gatekeepers. But if I'm honest, I don't really think they affect me. I've chosen to no longer let them affect me, if that makes sense. So if you think about it, everything is just a roadblock, right? So if you have someone that's saying, hey, the only way to get famous is to climb up my mountain, I'll choose whoever gets on my mountain. You have my permission whether or not to plant a flag in my mountain. I think a lot of people lose the idea that you can have your own mountain. You know what I mean? You don't have to suck up someone else's ass. Why celebrate someone that's just doing, like, shit things for the community? So for me, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to do good things, and I'll just celebrate my friends and hang out with good people and just do good art.
Yeah.
People will flock towards me, and it has. So the proof is in the pudding, being that you don't have to work with shit people, because I haven't. I've tried real hard. In the beginning, I was like, how can I get work from you? And it never happened. And I'm like, oh, turns out you're a shit cunt. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't work with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear things. I feel like I'm one of those people that in the industry at the moment, I don't necessarily have the luxury of experiencing a lot of these people because I've made a really good effort to avoid them. But I definitely have a lot of people talking about them to me. And so for me, there will be a time when I talk about these people publicly and name them. But for the moment, there's a fair share of gatekeepers in Melbourne street art, design industry and everywhere, but they shouldn't affect anyone really. They're doing their thing. You can do your thing. Climb your own mountain.
Yeah, I love that. Climb your own mountain. And so, Jess, I imagine part of that comes from getting really good at what you do. And I imagine part of it comes from sort of rising above convention or the way other people are doing stuff, because once you find, if you've got your own style that's uniquely you, you're not in competition with anyone, right?
You'd think so. For me, I've never really been competitive. I've always been competitive with myself. So when someone's like, oh, you're doing this, you look like this, I'm like, cool, all right, awesome. I think that, just to pull you back a bit, I don't think that I feel like I've got imposter syndrome, and I've always had it my entire life, and I feel like everybody who is a creative definitely has it. My idea is that I've never really been happy with my work. I've never really been satisfied with what I produce, and I think that's part of the drive, is to constantly get better. So I'm in competition with myself all the time. I know a lot of people see the street art industry or the creative industry as competitive, but there's enough work to go around. There shouldn't be any competitiveness. There's friendly competition, sure, like I did something better than you, or I'll do something better than you next week. That's the fun part. But yeah, I think when it feels competitive, I just think it feels tainted. It's like someone took a piss in La La Land. It's like, I'm enjoying myself here.
Yeah.
Why would you take a piss there? I don't know how much I can swear, but I'm sorry, Creative Mornings in advance.
Go for your life.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of me. I've never really been like overly happy with the work that I produce, and I think that's obviously imposter syndrome. But part of what I know is like I've just been very obsessed with art, with graffiti, with vandalism, with politics. Being an Aboriginal person in Australia, you're born into politics. You're thrown into it whether you like it or not. Everything you do is political. So for me, I'm thrown into these defaults and I just play the part. I don't have choice. So, yeah.
And what about the community side of things? So we sort of touched on the negative sides of things a bit in terms of bullies and gatekeepers or whatever, but you've obviously...
Yeah, we started out hot, hey? We came in pretty hot, hey?
Yeah. That's what we're here for.
Button pushers.
Yeah, professional button pusher. But you've obviously found community, right? You found like-minded people, you found...
Yeah.
How did that happen? Where did you find like-minded people and build your community?
All of the people that I like hate the same things. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I feel like it's like a flock thing, right? Like, birds of a feather flock together. I feel like when people have enough of a system, they want something else. Same as if you've had enough of the iPhone, you're like, oh, I want to buy a Nokia again. Like I want to downgrade.
Yeah.
It's everybody's preference. Like I'm not trying to invite people into the community. The community just happens because we're around. I don't actively say like I want you for the community. Nah, I'm not like that. I just do cool things and I do fun things and people flock towards it. So like the gallery, we do group shows, and I feel like that's part of what's helped build the community. I think the natural progression of my art has just like drawn people in to say like, oh, I like the things that you're doing, so I'm going to follow you. And then like, oh, I share the same opinion. Oh, cool. And so it just is that flock together thing, like we're all drawn to the same beliefs. If we have the same values, we'll just flock together naturally. Hence why we're all sitting here today listening to me ramble.
Yeah. Speaking of Honeybones, could you talk to us a little bit about the history of the gallery, when you founded it, why?
Yeah, so I started Honeybones 1 year after I got here in Melbourne. I'm originally from Gadigal country in Sydney. Me and my wife Britt started it. it started out of necessity, if I'm honest. I've always been that person that if I've never given an opportunity, I'll take it. I'll do it myself. And I've been reluctant enough in my career to not be given opportunities. I know it might seem like it, but I've been knocking on more doors than they've been answered. And a lot of what you see is definitely my hard work and like trying liaison and brown nose people and like corporate suck ups. Like it all happens. So we started in 2009, 2020, 1 month before lockdown, and that was pretty shit. So we stopped.
Dude, I'm sorry.
We're here now. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like we're sweet. And the reason why I started it is because I couldn't have a studio. I wanted to find a studio, but part of me was like, well, my head's massive and I've got a big ego, so I don't really want to interview with other artists to see if I can rent a spot from them to give them money. So at the same time, I'm like, well, I'll just make a really cool space that's cheaper and more affordable and more room, and just people might come to that. And turns out people did come to that. So instead of becoming competitiveness, we just became an alternative, you know, saying that like you don't have to have these values to join this thing, you know, if you want a space, come hang out. It just is that. So the reason why I started Honeybones with Brit is because we wanted to originally have a studio, and the gallery was just a second product of that. We definitely nearly pulled the plug before we moved to Brunswick. But if it wasn't for the shows that we had booked in, we're like, shit, we have to actually show these shows because I don't want to really give back anyone money. So we rented a warehouse. We took a gamble. I saved up a few government checks that I got from ScoMo during lockdown, and we paid for the deposit for a warehouse in Brunswick, upgraded, and yeah, next minute we have 10 or 12 creatives under the roof and a 170-metre gallery with a network that's like thriving and yeah, doing really cool shit this year. And residencies, now we're paying artists for residencies as opposed to an artist being like rocking up and hopefully they get paid at the end of it. We give them a paid residency. It's an interesting the way that we came up with the name too, actually, just thinking about it out loud. I've been on my science gimmick the last week or two, so I'm getting real excited about science. The reason why we named it Honeybones is actually quite cool. Does anyone know about the bumblebees? Does anyone know any facts about bumblebees in the building? Yeah? They can't fly. Yeah. So obviously the conversation is that like bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly. And, you know, science is showing like, oh, well, they clearly can, right? But what the reason why we named it Honeybones is actually based off the reason that they actually cannot fly. They levitate. So I see everyone smiling now. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about, you fucking idiot? So bumblebees have a hollow chest cavity and they flap their wings to imitate other birds and bees and everything. They flap their wings at a certain frequency, at a certain speed to cause their hollow chest cavity to vibrate, creating an electromagnetic resonance, which allows them to have free agency with an electromagnetic bubble that they put around themselves. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm just going to pretend
if it does make sense.
understand.
So hollow chest cavity, flap their wings, they vibrate, they levitate.
Incredible.
They have free agency across the magnetic lines of wherever they want to travel. It's great. So that's the reason why we named them Honeybones, is because we're more than people think we are. We're actually a lot deeper. There's a lot of thought that goes into what we do. And the idea of like vibrating to try and appear like you're doing something else, but actually you have more free reign than anybody else to do what you want to do. So we called them Honeybones like that. Definitely didn't steal the album name from Dope Lemon. But yeah, so I don't know, a fun little bumblebee fact. I'm like obsessed with science at the moment. It's great.
The content you didn't know you were going to get from this morning's Creative Mornings talk.
I thought we're talking about gatekeepers. We're talking about bumblebees. Yeah. What the fuck? I want my money back.
That's gorgeous, and I really love that. And you're obviously very supportive, things like giving people paid residencies, and I know through Warlords, one of your other projects, is it like a mentorship relationship where you connect younger artists to do mural work? Am I understanding that correctly?
In a way. It's actually, it covers a few areas. So in one way, it appeals to artists who may be too busy to install their work. So we have artists that install work for other creatives. So it could be a designer, it could be an illustrator, it could be a mural artist that just doesn't have time. Warlords will step in and go, well, we have the artist to facilitate that. So in one division, we're a facilitator. The second division is that we're a mentor program. So we do paid advertisements, but in the way that we pay artists properly. We pay artists their actual worth. There's price jumps as well. So like if you're a senior artist leading the job, you'll be considered a mentor to show the younger person the ropes, show them what you know, we'll set them up with everything. And so it's very much of like it's almost like an education program, but like learning the hard way. So it's not sit down structured, here's how to paint on a wall. It's just, I'll throw you in the deep end. If you have any questions, let's chat it out. It's not that hard to paint on a wall, colour by numbers. I think that's partly what we do. Like for me, I'm shit at realism. I couldn't do realism if you fucking paid me, and I don't. And me and my partner Mark, we started Warlords out of that necessity, being that I'm not a realism artist. We know realism artists. We know realism artists that are out of work at the moment or not getting paid enough. So let's try and get them some work, and then we try and get to the point where it's repetitive work. And it's consistent, and there's upskilling, and there's learning, and there's no lock-in contracts. You can go do work anywhere else as well. And I think I'm trying to break down the stigma of that if you're a full-time creative or a full-time artist, you don't need to be doing one solo thing. You can have different streams of revenue. If you're saying, I'm going to paint this wall for $1,000 and they don't pay you for a month, like... You need other forms of revenue, and it can also be just working in a cafe too. Like if you're not getting your money from, Richard Branson or anything like that, you're still actually contributing to small businesses, and you're contributing to the fact that you're seeking employment by doing your thing. You're technically a freelancer if you go do casual work. So I think I'm trying to break the stigma of that, is that you can just have different forms of revenue as an artist, as a creative. You don't have to be a pure illustrator. You don't have to be a pure designer. You can literally do whatever you want. You can talk about bumblebees on the stage if you want.
I really love that, Jessie, because I think that can be something that people feel almost self-conscious about if they have a day job or a second, art form or whatever it is. But I don't know anyone who doesn't have some form of that. And also, if you're creating, you need inputs to be able to create your outputs. If you're just doing the one thing constantly, it gets a bit hard to be inspired. And what I love about all of the things we've spoken about so far today, Jess, is not only do you have a strong sense of rising up, to support yourself and back yourself, but you're also helping others to rise up too, which is really cool.
Yeah, I do try. I remember us talking about the theme Rise, and you were like, what does it mean to you? And I was like, here's 10 reasons. I noticed you talking about the phoenix before. I feel like I think I was telling you on the phone, like I have a huge phoenix tattoo on my back that takes up the entirety of my back. So the theme of Rise is very, very important to me, being that you can constantly reinvent yourself. I also have a Japanese proverb that's tattooed on me that says fall down 7 times, stand up 8, which theoretically doesn't make sense. But it's definitely a proverb that has been passed through. So it's the concept of, just consistency and resilience. And yeah, I feel like if a lot of people can realise that, if there's a road bump, that it's just literally just a road bump. There are so many other forms of work out there, so many other forms of curatorship or art direction or anybody else. Like you can have constant work if you just pursue it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about bumblebees again.
And bumblebees. All right, at this stage, I'd love to open it up to you guys if we have any burning questions for Jess. And I'm not checking my Instagram, I promise. I'm checking the Slido, just in case you're wondering.
It's final.
So, as a fellow illustrator and artist, I do find myself almost getting transported back to the time when I created that thing whenever I look at it. Is there a particular piece that you have a strong memory or you learnt the most from when you look at it and look back at it?
Yeah, I think I'll never work with Adidas again, put it that way.
There goes my sponsorship deal, jeez.
I prefer check service stripes. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a piece that stands out for me, and it was just I've got it on the top of my Instagram. It's like a purple geisha that I painted in a private atrium in someone's house. For me, that's one of my favourite ones because it's less about what it looks like and more about the conversations that I shared with the people when I was painting. So they let me paint during lockdown, which I think at that time everyone was like, why the fuck aren't you wearing a mask? I'm like, I'm just going down the road to paint this. So there's around that time where everyone was a real hostile, mental health was flared. And what I remember most is just having the experience of sharing like conversation and sharing beers and talking animals and UFOs with this really awesome couple. And for me, that's just a standout. And I think about that way more than I think about the install of the mural. I don't actually think about the install of the mural. I always think about the experience around it and the photograph of the mural after, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I definitely play more on experiences than I do for final product, if I'm honest. But yeah, checks over stripes for sure.
Any other questions for Jessie? Yeah, up the back.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been really entertaining and informative. One of the questions that I have is when we talk about social commentators with artists, there's a really famous one that I'm sure everyone knows, which is Keith Haring. And there's been a time past where every major corporate person has grabbed the rights. He's doing Pandora bracelets, like you've seen Bosquat and Haring everywhere. But they were revolutionary commentators at the time. And, you know, they were LGBTQ leaders. They were really powerful people in the 80s and the 90s and really started revolutions. Now, do you feel like as we're talking about gatekeeping, we're exposing newer, younger audiences to these incredible artists? Every museum around the world is picking up their exhibits. At what point is their work as social commentators going to be diluted versus kind of that gatekeeping aspect, just in your opinion as an artist who also does some social commentary? Is there a line in your work after you've passed and your legacy is on that you would want every corporation under the sun to grab your work to continue that work for relevance and what have you? Or is there a certain point that we should draw a line as consumers and artists and creatives of saying that this does dilute the original message?
Fuck, what a good question. Look, I got to be honest. I started my career with the one goal of being bootlegged. I'm not even kidding. I want my shit to be bootlegged and sold in Paddy's markets in Sydney. That's me personally. I think that as a creator, I am very, very heavily focused on my mortality at the moment and how much legacy I leave behind, and you know the concept of immortality and how much your voice or your impact can echo throughout time. I think that if my shit was to be mass spread and mass diluted after I'm gone, there is a little bit of my ego that's like, fuck yeah, man. There's a second part of that, which means that my daughter gets to have food on her plate for the rest of her life. So there's that. As a part of integrity, I'm sure that Keith and Basquiat would be rolling over in their glitter-covered graves, but at the same time, they are no longer spokesmen for any of the things that they were, because now that they are literally, like, they're just carbon copies of what they were. They're not actually the same spokespeople. It's brands like Pandora that are, you know, capitalising on their success. And you can look at Elvis, right? Like, they're making movies of Elvis. He's one of the biggest people that stole shit from black culture in the world. But yet we're still like celebritizing them. So part of me is like, it's shit, but the other part of me is like, I like money. I really like money. So it is definitely a subjective question. I think it's hard to actually nail down exactly how I feel. I do think it's bullshit that they're capitalising on it. I think it's fucking gross. And I will never buy anything with Keith Haring's name on it or Basquiat whilst they've been mass-produced after they're gone. That's where I'm at personally. Bootleg my shit. I won't buy anyone else's, but if I'm winning, then that's great. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I'm very selfish with money, so as long as it's like...
By the way, I love being bootlegged as a goal.
100%.
So good.
It's a very real goal. I remember walking through Paddy's Markets when I was a kid, and I remember buying this G-unit jumper that was so heavily like covered in what's it called, pilling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was peeled like crazy after like a week. And I'm like, you know what? One day I want my name on that jumper, and I want my name to pill for some little kid. It's legit. It's an actual goal.
I feel like we can make this happen for you. I'm just saying.
It's already in the works.
Yeah. Any other questions for Jess? We've probably got time for 2 more. Yes.
Was there, I mean, thinking about your early life as a kid, was there a moment or a series of moments where you thought, art is my calling, this is my calling?
Art is my calling. Yeah, actually. I remember being in art class it was my mum's art class. So I used to go to this really perverted Catholic school in Sydney, real pedophilic. And my mum had a public school across the road, and she used to run art classes for Indigenous kids that just didn't have any place after school. So I left school early to help her get it set up, and then a bunch of kids rocked up early and we just started chatting shit and started playing, and then it turns out that I was going to run the art class. I was only a kid, and I just remember just being so connected with Aboriginal culture. And I remember talking to my mum, and she was like, well, yeah, we're actually part of, she's part of the stolen generation. And so me getting connected with these local mob doing art when I was supposed to be at school, this makes way more sense. You telling me I can skip school and do art? Sick. So I think there's been that moment, running classes for local mob at home. There's been moments of failing art classes because I chose to do pop art as opposed to realism portraiture. I remember failing a subject because I did this really cool, massive, that big size Spider-Man panel that was that big, and I failed. And the teacher was like, this isn't good. This isn't art. This isn't anything. This is bootleg. This is stealing. And I'm like, yeah, but I've done a way better job than anybody else. None of these portraits actually look like anybody. Mine looks exactly like Spider-Man. What are you telling me? And so for me, that having this rebellious nature, I see people like that being like, well, you're going to tell me that that's not art. I'm going to prove you wrong. And fun fact, that art teacher, I still send my my end of year payment, pay things from tax. I still send him my end of year income every single year when he's like, that's not art, you're not going to be an artist. Every single year when I get it back from the government, I'm like...
And this is what you mean by professional button pusher.
I'm so petty. I'm so petty, for sure. I love it.
I love it. Never change.
I don't think I can.
One final question. Does anyone have a good one to bring us home with?
E.T.
No pressure.
Just about the gallery, is it open? Do you have shows? What's with the Honeybones?
Yeah, so what's with Honeybones? So as opposed to other galleries, we don't really have that open to everybody thing. We're very much gatekeepers ourselves. No, we're not open in the way that you can walk in whenever you feel like it and there's 9 to 5, someone will be there. It's not that at all. We have shows, and we man the shows when we have things on. So at the moment, I think the next show is like the first of the residencies. So there'll be an open studio for the residencies. There will be a thing that we've started with Honey Bones, which is very similar to this. It's called Big Chats, where it's just less formal, more like no records, just chatting. And every Saturday we do Art Club, which is $10 art therapy facilitated by an arts therapist, and they actually relabeled it Cry Club. They got stickers and stuff that's like, I came to Art Club and I didn't cry. It's beautiful. It's really good. I've done it a handful of times. So that's every Saturday. In 2024, which is now, I guess, we're running workshops. So every week or two, I think we're doing it every week. Starting in March, we have Wednesday workshops. So 1 week will be, our take on like Pino Picasso without the rapey Picasso vibe. Fuck, he is what it is. That guy's a fucking creep. Stop giving him money. On the note of him being dead too, like fuck that guy. Leave it in the grave, fucking Picasso. So like that's kind of what we're doing, I guess, to appeal to a market as an alternative, being like, if you don't want to support someone like that, just come do art with us. So there's that. There'll be digital workshops as well. There'll be art hangs, like local, just come in and like kind of like black book sessions, I guess. Like you can talk to artists, like trade sketches, be more of like a little hang type thing, less formal. And then I'll be starting my chess club.
Really?
Fuck yeah.
Full circle.
My second goal, apart from being bootlegged, is to become a grandmaster in chess. It will happen. My wife told me I'm an idiot and a liar and says it's not going to happen. And I'm like, they told Buzz Aldrin that he was gonna land on the moon. He faked the shit out of that. Watch me fake.
All right, on that note, I will make sure to grab a bunch of that info from you, Jessie, and share that in the Creative Mornings Melbourne channel so you can find all those awesome things. And maybe the person whose card you picked up, you can message them and you can go on a cute little art date together. Jessie, thank you so much for being here today. We absolutely appreciate it. You are a complete legend. Let's hear it for JESWRI. Jessie Wright.
Thank you.